musicians, if you want to play at retirement communities, avoid these 5 things. Number one, you need to learn how to make a good pitch. Don't have a bad pitch. So what is a pitch? It's a way of describing what you do in about 1 sentence so that anybody can understand. If you play classical music on the harp, then you say, well, I play classical music on the harp. If you play rockabilly on guitar, you say, well, I have a rockabilly show and I play the guitar and sing rockabilly songs. That's 1 sentence that describes what you do. If you're a little bit of everything, that's okay. Just put it all in a sentence. Put it all in a sentence. What my pitch is a lot of different things. I say, my name's Tim. I play piano at retirement communities, and what I do is I play songs from the 40s and 50s, and jazz and ragtime and blues and boogie woogie and country and gospel. That's my pitch. Maybe that was 2 sentences. But you need to be able to tell them, to communicate that. And that's what's gotten me gigs, is to have a good pitch, to have a pitch that tells the activities directors what I do. The next mistake that I see musicians making is they're not charging the right amount. And this is controversial, but y'all, 0 is the wrong amount. 0 is the wrong amount. It's a good thing for volunteers to volunteer. If that's what you want to do, you want to volunteer. If it's part of your ministry, if it's part of your calling to go into communities and to volunteer, then do that. But if you're a musician whose profession is music, even if it's just a hobby for you, charging is a good thing because it does a couple things. Number one, it creates sort of like a contract, okay? So they contract you for services, you put it on your calendar, they put it on their calendar, the residents have it in their mind that this is the event that's going to happen, and then it happens. So it's a community event. Like, once you put money down or once they contract your services for money, for pay, then it's legitimized. Now, one thing that I see happening to volunteers, and I talk to a lot of activities directors, y'all. I talk to, I would say, probably about 100 a month at least. And one thing that I know happens is a lot of the times volunteers will cancel or they just won't show up. And it's unfortunate because that disappoints the activities directors. It makes them look unprofessional. And it's harder for them to trust a volunteer in the future. It also really disappoints the residents because they feel abandoned. They feel like, oh, well, what are we doing wrong? It's sad. And so, number one, if you're a volunteer watching this, then that's something to consider. Maybe you should be charging for your services to hold yourself accountable. I don't mean to be pointing. I'm sorry. But it's frustrating for me to see that sometimes. So 0 is the wrong amount. If you are on the high end of services, if you position yourself, say, as a performance artist that plays concert halls, okay, that's high end positioning. You will get gigs at the higher end places. So there's higher end communities, and you will get gigs at those higher end places. If you charge a significant amount for an hour performance, say you charge $500 for an hour performance, okay? That's more than I charge. For an hour performance, you will get maybe a few gigs at retirement communities. The ones that have the extra budget, they'll have some special event, like a grand opening, and the mayor will come and speak and everything. It'll be a big party. So they have big budgets for those kinds of events. But the frequency will be affected. So you're not going to get hired as much. If you're cool with that, if you have like a busy concert touring schedule, then great, keep your price where it is. Now that's a different subject altogether. If you're doing really well and you're able to charge high prices and do high volume, then do that. So what I do, though, is I charge good prices and do high volume. And I play about 50 gigs a month. I'm very proud of myself. I'm very happy with this. And so the amount that I charge in 2023 in Memphis, Tennessee and the surrounding area is around $150 a month. Per hour, $150 per hour. But I give certain discounts, like I give discounts for monthly performances sometimes. But I don't really ever discount lower than $125. So that's something that you can play with as a musician. Like if you're just starting out, you can say, hey, I charge $150, but I have a first time special for $125. So that's really the right amount. That's the amount that works with your budget. I have not experimented really with charging a significantly higher amount. I'm kind of in the process of contemplating raising my rates because, number one, inflation, and number two, I'm getting better as a piano player and I'm able to provide the service better. So the service that you provide it's not just music, it's entertainment. And that's going to evolve, and you get to choose how you do that, really. So that's what's worked for me, is charging $150 and then having a little bit of flexibility. Sometimes if like their budget's really low and they really want me and I've established that I can entertain their residents, then I'll give them a little discount sometimes. The next ways that musicians sabotage playing at retirement communities is they don't talk with the residents the right way. This took me a while to get. There was a time when I would try to lighten the mood and make jokes, and I was a bit socially awkward sometimes, I gotta be honest. Joking about death, joking about aging, joking about getting old. They really have to be in the right mood, okay? Because you can't make it feel like you're making fun of them, all right? You should have fun with them, but don't make fun of them, because that's at their expense. It's not a good thing to do. I gotta share this. There was a time when I was saying, like, are there any requests or songs that you're dying to hear? No, don't say that. Don't say that, y'all. It's sensitive. It's sensitive, and that would be insensitive to say that. Say instead, does anybody have a request of a song that they would love to hear that they haven't heard yet? That's much better. So be cognizant of that. Now, if you're a comedian and you have a really good pulse, like a feel of the pulse of the crowd, and you feel comfortable telling those jokes, then go right ahead. I was working with an activities director who was really good at this, and his name's Mark Brown, and he was able to tell this really funny story about a proctologist, and it was just that he had him in stitches. But that's what he did. Like he was very good at communicating humor and the humor of getting old. So use your best judgment about that, but you want to. The thing that's worked for me is treating them with respect and not talking down to them, which is kind of, I think, difficult if you're not around seniors a lot. I found when I was starting out that I was maybe talking sort of pejoratively. I mean, like talking down to them like they're children. There's something to be said about the elderly needing more care and kind of like going to like a childlike state towards the end of their lives. But it's different than them being a baby. Like, these are people that have lived for decades, 80, 90, 100 years sometimes. And so they have developed mature personalities, and being polite is a great way to do that. Being respectful. If you're in the South, say yes sir, yes ma'am, unless they tell you otherwise. I know if you're not from the South, that sounds weird. It's like, I'm not in the military. That's what I thought when I first came around. Yes ma'am and yes sir when I moved to the South from Boston, Massachusetts when I was 10 years old. But just use your best judgment and treat them with respect. At the same time, and here's the tricky part, at the same time, you don't want to really you don't want to subjugate yourself in that way. Like, you have your thing, they have their thing, but you're the entertainer, like, it's your show. So play with that a little bit, and let me know what questions you have. It can be kind of tricky sometimes. The fourth mistake that musicians make, y'all, is they conduct themselves unprofessionally. And that means blaming the activities director for certain things. It means showing up late and not having an excuse, not communicating properly. So if I'm ever late, and I'm late a lot of the time, I'm not proud of it. But especially if I'm like touring and I'm doing 4 or 5 gigs in a day, sometimes like if I'm playing in Little Rock, Arkansas, there's oftentimes traffic. Sometimes there'll be an accident. I can't control that. But what I can control is if whether or not I pick up the phone and call the activities director and say, hey, there was traffic on 240, there's an accident. My GPS says I'm going to be 40 minutes behind. I'm going to do my best to get there. Do you want to reschedule, or is it okay if we push it back? So if I can push it back, then I'll try to do that and play it the same day, but just communicate. So that's one way that I like to maintain professional, like being professional. And the mistake is to be unprofessional, to miss a gig entirely. That's very rare for me, but it has happened. Honestly, it's happened within the last year. One time, I missed a gig because I went to the wrong place. I just made a human error. And I apologized. The activities director felt burned, and I totally get it. I said, I totally get it. If you like to try again sometime, I would love to do that. But I totally understand if you're not comfortable booking me again. That's what I said. I wasn't begging her, but I was taking responsibility. I said, yep, I made a mistake. Totally 100% my fault. And I hope that I can make it better. That's what I said, essentially. So that's a way of handling. So professionalism is not being perfect. It's doing your best and being accountable. So accountable is different from, I forgot what I was going to contrast that with, but being accountable is saying, hey, I made a mistake. Apologize. I'm going to make it better in the future. Here's what I'd like to do going forward. Okay? And then you have to accept the outcome, because sometimes they'll say, okay, no problem. Sometimes they'll say, that's a problem. And then you have to be like, okay. So that is a way of conducting yourself professionally. Getting some of the business aspects down is great. For example, asking for an email address to send your invoice. When you book a gig, say, hey, what's the best email address to send my invoice to? That's it. Like, not all activities directors are going to ask for that. And then you show up to the gig, and then they'll be like, oh, by the way, we want to mail you a check. Can you fill out this W-9 form? So preemptively sending W-9 forms is another way of being professional. And I kind of teach how to do that, how to present yourself that way in my coaching programs. It's pretty easy once you know what to do, and just stay on top of it. One other way that I like to present myself professionally is dressing professionally. I don't wear t-shirts to the gig. I try to wear a hat such as this one for style, but then I wear a button-up shirt and slacks and nice shoes. Nice looking shoes. That's what I do, because I want to present myself professionally. Now, this is going to change in a few years, because the style of dress that the World War II generation and the Greatest Generation prefer is that professional style, at least in the American South. So it's different regionally, y'all. But the baby boomers dress very differently. They're called see, this is so exciting to me, because the entire culture went through such a shift between the current retired generation and the generation that is currently retiring, which is the baby boomers. It's such a shift, musically, stylistically, philosophically. So it's a big change, and I have a video on the baby boomers and how that's going to be different. So they want a different style of music, and they would probably accept a different style of dress. But for now, I'm going to err on the side of professional as that transition happens. The fifth mistake that I've made, and this is the biggest one, is to think and assume that I was somehow more important than bingo. Bingo, the game bingo. Never mess with bingo. Never mess with bingo. If your activities director even thinks that they're going to move bingo for you, stop them. Okay? They're doing a bad thing. Stop them for their sake and for your sake, because bingo is a big event. It's a huge event in the lives of retired people. And if you think for a second that you're more important than bingo, then you have a rude awakening coming. I'm happy to be the most popular entertainment second to bingo. I'm not aspiring to ever be better than bingo. That's just what it is, y'all. You have to accept that. Never mess with bingo. I never mess with bingo. And I tell people that I never mess with bingo when I'm on the phone. And that's a good way of building rapport too, y'all. Because if you say that you never mess with bingo to an activities director, they're probably gonna laugh and say, "Yeah, that's smart." you never mess with bingo. They know how important bingo is to retirees, y'all, to seniors. So never mess with bingo. All right, so the 5 mistakes to recap: you don't have a good pitch, you charge the wrong amount, you talk to them in the wrong way, you conduct yourself unprofessionally, and you mess with bingo. Those are the 5 biggest mistakes. So to correct that, have a good pitch, charge the right amount, talk to them in a way that is the best way to talk with them, which is in an entertaining way that's not pejorative, or it's not talking down to them, but still in a way that's respectful. And that takes a little bit of practice, but you can get it. And then conducting yourself in a way that's professional, and then respecting bingo. So those are my top 5 mistakes, y'all, and the ways to correct them. Let me know what questions you have in the comments. Like and subscribe, and stay musical.